Good.
Something. Can you? Is my video okay? I might have to turn it off
It's a
eventually.
little blurry. I think it's just connection.
Well, I don't have that much bandwidth to
Okay.
for like HD, so that I made it blurry on purpose. But let me know if it like gets choppy or if it compromises the audio. And
No, the audio is good. The audio is good, and and it's fluid, so it's a little blurry, but it's fluid.
yeah, I had to make it so. Anyway, I'm pretty sure we've been live for a few seconds, so
All right.
don't mind us. Anyway, I hope everybody's doing well today. Thanks for joining us all. Give it a few seconds for a few more people to stream in. For those of you who don't know Drew Morgan, he is an ex-vegan, and I guess he'll tell us more about his journey as far as that's concerned. Ex-vegan turned carnivore, and well, he's got a lot of things to say about the vegan community, vegans, and I suppose his own journey. Why are we not live? Wait,
I
let me
think we
check.
are live because people can hear us.
All right, well, good. Man, it is what it is. Anyway, how you doing, man?
I'm doing very good, man. Thanks for having me on. By the way, I'm very excited about this one. I've loved your content for a while, and this is like the final thing of my week of like promotions and everything. So like it's gonna be a fun one, I think.
Yeah, I was just busting your balls yesterday about me getting sloppy seconds. I know how the game works. I just refuse to play it. It's all good. Yeah.
Oh man, yeah, I didn't even see that. I saw the bug eye video. Thank you for the bug eye video. Damn it.
Hey, you're the one talking about symptoms, and you never mentioned that one, so I
I
figured
didn't
I'd.
notice that until you showed that on the video. I was like, "Holy shit, that's crazy." And I didn't know that that's how it looked from back then, man. Like that's interesting that you pointed that out. And then you show like the truck video one,
Mhm.
and they look different. What can you say? Like, look at my
Yeah, what can you say? I mean, I guess the way you feel about it now really kind of helps to explain why so many vegans are in denial, because I'm still getting these comments, and it's okay. I'm not complaining. From people saying that, I'm crazy, I'm seeing things that don't exist. It's like the man himself is telling you that, this is just one of many things that he's noticed change since ditching the vegan diet. So it is what it is, man. People are blinded by what is it?
people are blinded because of the ethical position. I really want to make a follow up video to this. What I want to call unethical veganism.
Hmm.
Basically, it's this position that people have when it comes to the ethical veganism. Essentially, as long as they are an ethical vegan, anything that they do is justified to promote the message of ethical veganism. So it's not even just like somebody said blind faith. It's not a blind faith. It's essentially a justification for their actions, no matter how illegal, unethical, disloyal, untrue. It's if it's in the vein of promoting the ethics and promoting veganism as a a thing, then it's all justified, and that is so wrong.
Well, but that was exactly what I was going to say. How do you justify the ethicality of any one movement when it's built on lies? And, I would argue that veganism is. And I don't mean to include everybody in this because, if people want to not eat meat for whatever personal reasons, that's all good. But when you try to sell it to a larger audience with bullshit, then how is that ethical? You know what I mean? Like, what is this ethical system that I'm still trying to grasp what it is that justifies people lying for a greater good, I suppose. I don't get it.
Well, I think it comes down to them not looking deeply into it. Uh,
Ignorant.
yeah, it's ignorance. Vegans are super ignorant and super arrogant. Like the two worst things that you could be as a personality trait is ignorance and arrogance, and basically they have both in spades. Some come around on the ignorant part, but most don't want to admit that they're wrong, and that's the arrogant part where they just want to they don't even want to speak up when they do find out that certain things aren't working for them. Like if they do find out that they are not feeling well or whatever, they're going to just admit that the vegan diet can still solve those problems for them. They're going to be able to solve it with supplementation. You're doing it wrong, and that's the way that they feel about it. But again, like I said, as far as not looking deeply into it, they just, in their mind, it's a simple solution. It's 1 + 1 = 2. They're saying to themselves, I'm not eating animals, therefore that's better for the environment, that's better for everything. And they just don't want to take the whole picture into account.
Did you ever swallow the ethical pill, or was it more about health for you?
100% about health. I did make some comments along the way, saying like, this is a nice benefit. I know, like,
Mhm.
imagine not having to kill animals to be optimally healthy. Like, that sounds great. Why wouldn't you do that? I'm not a psychopath, sociopath, murderer, torturer, but I always gave myself that out. I always gave myself the out that said, if I am convinced that I need animal products for an optimal health, I'm gonna go back. And I
Mhm.
always gave myself that little out.
Well, I guess that's why it wasn't, I'm guessing, very hard for you to quit. And I would even give you credit for helping to convince Bobby, but that's a whole nother topic there. So is that true because you weren't committed ideologically to the vegan diet or veganism in general? Is that why, you didn't wait till you were like freely the banana girl, or, just completely deteriorated?
Yeah, and I don't know if they're trolling and they're playing around saying that's why you were never a vegan in the chat, but it's one of those things that, yeah, that's the case. Like, if you identify with the ethical side, you're basically making the statement that if my health deteriorates, I'm going to stick with this. I'm going to stick with this protocol, and I'm going to go all the way. They're not even standing on the health aspect anymore. If you notice on YouTube, vegans have kind of stepped away from the health perspective. They're
Yeah.
almost even willing to concede that point and say, "Hey, we are even willing to recognize that it's not even the healthiest diet in the world that we promised you it was 5 years ago." They're starting to actually come around logically and see that people are not doing very well long term on this. So,
Few people are, but for a
yeah.
lot of them, it's the reverse of what it was for you. The health is like a little perk benefit of just being awesome, I guess. I don't know.
Well, you'd be surprised, man, because like everything else in this world, the social media portrayal of what's going on and then the stuff that's going on behind the scenes, it's two different things, man. Because I happen to be privileged to a lot of the behind the scenes stuff, living in Hawaii, being around so many vegans, so many social media influencers, big name people, even still big name people that are around right now that are still vegan on social media. There's conversations going on behind the scenes that people just don't even realize, and they don't understand that it's a process for people. It's a process for things to turn around and for people to admit that things could possibly be wrong. Like, I just watched my interview today with Bobby, the first one we ever did.
Yeah.
Um, the first one we ever did, and we were both vegan at that time. And I even heard myself say something in the interview. It was like, I'm eating processed vegan foods, and I've got pretty good digestion. And I'm thinking to myself right now, like, I had no idea what good digestion really even was until I went onto almost 100% animal product diet. You
Yeah.
know, I
Yeah.
had no
No,
comparison.
I call that the new normal. And I know what you mean, even though I was never plant based, not 100% anyway, not what you would call vegan. But I didn't even know that or realize that I had health issues that could have been resolved by just adding certain ingredients into my diet, like more meat. So I just thought my body was breaking down physically because of having been a cyclist for many years, and just I'm 40 years old. I mean, goddamn, things should start happening, right? And then I find some crazy squirrel eating caveman here on YouTube, and he's eating nothing but raw meat, and I'm like, fuck it, I'll try it, even though
Who
I
who
was
who turned you? Who turned you? Where'd you get this idea? Because I think you were already doing this way before this onslaught of vegans that started coming out. Because you weren't vegan, right?
Fetty. No, I was never vegan, but I was brainwashed to a certain degree where I thought meat was bad, so I didn't eat much of it. And
Mm-hmm.
I was basically what I would call plant-based, right? And I didn't have enough collagen to like support my joint health, and I was just suffering, man. I was inflamed like crazy. My knees were literally falling apart, dude. I thought I wasn't gonna be able to walk in about 10 years. It was bad. And then I take out all the plants, start eating a meat heavy diet almost exclusively for 3 months, strict meat diet, and everything just went away. And like what you said, for me, I think it's important people to understand that you don't necessarily have to be vegan to have a meat deficiency, is what I would call it.
Oh yeah, definitely. I think that like as I we're kind of going all over the place right now, but I think as I get deeper into the meat, deeper into the animal products, I'm seeing that really where my tolerance to the plant foods are. Rather than when I was vegan, I assumed that I should be able to tolerate tons and tons of plant foods to get all my caloric needs. But really what I'm seeing is like the human body might not even be able to tolerate this stuff on a small level. Like even 10% of our calories might be too much for some people. And I do want to bring this up later, and because I think you're the best person for me to talk about this with live is like, how do some people do well on a vegan diet? Like, why are there these outliers that can do well on a vegan diet that do seem to have it all together? They're vegan long term. They got good health. They got good skin color. They got good digestion. They got decent performance. When I really try and break these people down and learn and study them, I rarely see people who have it all, but I see some vegans doing it long term that have they have it pretty good. And those people make our job pretty hard to convince people because they just look at that one person. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, that is something interesting to get into, because I was actually thinking of a question, something along those lines. Because I know some vegans in real life, but not very well, right? I mean, I just not the type of guy to get along with vegans, if you know what I'm saying. But I was going to ask you, do you know of any long-term vegans? I'm saying decade plus, that you trust enough to know that what they tell you is true, that i.e. they're not cheating. Do you know any of these people that are still doing well after, let's say, 10-15 years of veganism? Can you say with any sort of certainty that they do exist? Because I can't.
It's a great question. And I would be the person, I'd be one of the people to ask. I mean, I don't know the most amount of vegans in the world, but I know a lot. And I've talked to a lot of vegans that appear to be doing well or whatever. And my answer to that would basically be no. There's very well-known vegans that I was friends with in Hawaii. Evan Rock is one of them. 10 plus year vegan, guys. 10 plus years. He, I started doing my meat experiments my last month that I was in Hawaii. Some people were pissed. They were not happy with what I was doing. I had people move out of my house because of it, and I was cooking steaks in the kitchen and stuff like that. And they were stomping around the house, and they wanted to live in a vegan, ethical household. And I
Who
was
the
just like,
fuck is cooking bacon?
well, yeah, it was a mess. It was not comfortable for anybody in that house for a couple weeks. And because I stood my ground and I did what I thought was necessary, then other people started following. And that's what I've learned is that if you fold and you don't stand your ground, everybody is just like, okay, they're justified in their criticism of you. But if you stand your ground and you start showing results, people see that and they respect that and they follow that. And my intention was never to lead a bunch of people out of veganism, but honestly, that's what happened. Like a bunch of people that I know in Hawaii, I'd say almost half of them started consuming animal products. Some of them very long-term vegans, like 10 plus year vegans we're talking about here. And I mean, if they hadn't figured it out in 10 years, then why do people think that they have it all figured out in 1 year as a vegan? Because a lot of
Well,
these people were supplementing. Here's what I want to say though. Every single long-term vegan, 5+ years, especially 10+ years, they are all supplementing with the widest, craziest variety of vitamins and minerals, trying to make that shit happen. On top of enzymes, digestive enzymes, some of them. And yes, so that's what I would say. I know the ones that I did know are pretty much off of veganism for the
yeah.
most part.
And you know, if you're supplementing so heavily and you're essentially mimicking, copying animal-based products, can we really still call that whole food plant-based? Obviously not. But these people still, this is the problem I have with veganism, you know. They'll say that the way to do it right is whole food plant-based, but they never really want to admit to having to take all these supplements, because that's an admission of the diet being inherently insufficient and being deficient, you know, and it's kind of like admitting failure. But, you know, that as far as long-term vegans, like, how can we really know if these people are who they say they are? Because I don't have any, well, I have some experience, like third-person accounts, anecdotal accounts of vegans cheating while pretending to be, you know.
That happens all the time. That I can verify that happens all the time.
So how can we really trust anybody? You know what I mean?
No.
Like Annette Larkins, who the hell, especially all these people that are in the public eye promoting the diet. I mean, obviously they invested sometimes their entire livelihood is invested into the vegan diet, that they're just gonna, you know, take their secrets to the grave, I feel like.
Yeah, some of them are, man. And you see what happens when these big vegans come out as ex-vegans. They are viciously attacked. Mob mentality. I've never seen such a show of ignorance. People coming through and just trashing your character. People attacking your business. I've seen some really ugly things happen, especially with my personal friend, you know, Elise from Raw Alignment. Since she's come out as a non-vegan anymore, there's just been so much stuff. Like, you look at what happened with Tim Sheaf. You know, he was the god, he was the prince of veganism. You know, everybody loved Tim Sheaf, and because he aligned himself with the ethical aspect so much, and then eventually was just like, you know what, I can't do this anymore. Um, People just lost it. They lost it. They lost all their faith in him. You know, he had to step down from his company that he helped found, because otherwise people were just going to tear it down anyway. And that's what's messed up, you know.
I see Henchy slipped in.
Hench, oh man, I love the people don't realize like what's really going on there. So you got Hench Herbivore, right? This guy, he admits to having gut issues, and he's, you know, we can talk about his enhancements that he's probably consuming. I'm not going to make that statement for a fact. I don't know, but it's likely, right?
Yeah.
And then you have him promoting protein supplements from Vivo Life, totally paid off. And you have him promoting, now he's the ethics brand ambassador, wearing the shirts that I modeled in Hawaii with Tim Sheaf, the brand new shirts that says vegan on it. And he's in all his captions lately wearing that shirt. Like, it's such a diss for that guy to be around.
Totally.
And then he's over there trashing Tim Sheaf on his channel publicly. You know, like, what's up with that? Like, come on, man. This brand, Tim Sheaf helped found that thing. They make Tim basically step down. I don't really know the specifics of that, so I'm sorry if I'm overstepping my boundaries there. But he left. They get this guy who trashes Tim Sheaf. It's like, where are the ethics and the morality in the business sense, like in the loyalty sense? There's nothing, you know.
I don't even go nearly as deep as you into the whole drama, but I noticed that it was just shady. That's why I brought it up, because he's just such an opportunist, and it's great, you know. You know, I'm not trying to hate on the man, but to turn around and diss Tim Sheaf, like you said, yeah, definitely not ethical. As far as what he's, you know, shooting up besides B12, who cares, man?
Who cares? Who knows? I don't
You know
know.
what I mean? No, I mean, I agree. It's highly suspicious, and it's whatever, man. Sorry I brought him up. He's not even
No,
worth
it's
it.
all good. And I see a lot of people in the comments talking about, you know, Vivo Life is you know, it's on every vegan channel. It's got the flashiest marketing. It's got the flashiest brand ambassadors now, right? So you
And
got some.
they all look to be suffering to me, man. Because
Well,
wasn't Ravana part of the whole crew?
I
Isn't
don't know
she?
if she was. I know that, like, I know that John Venus is a Vivo
Yeah,
Life. I know Derek Simnet. Basically, all the big fit people are Vivo Life.
yeah.
Brian Turner, I believe, is also Vivo Life.
I'm pretty
So
sure I saw her photo on the webpage. I'm pretty
okay, so
sure I
she
did.
was probably one of the girls that was promoting it.
Yeah.
But it just goes to show that there is money involved in this,
Hmm.
and there's big brands that are starting to invest big money, and people get all weird when you start talking about conspiracies. But it's not a conspiracy. This is what's happening. I mean,
Yeah.
Tyson Foods
Well, it is
invested
a
55 mil.
conspiracy. It's not a theory, but it is a conspiracy.
Well, what I'm saying is that open your eyes. Tyson
Yeah.
Food just invested 55 mil into Beyond Meat. Like, that's not a conspiracy. That's public information. There's
Of course.
no conspiracy there. So people are like, well, because this is what you hear vegans say. There's no money in selling more broccoli. They're not selling broccoli, you ding dongs. They're selling you protein powder, and they're selling you supplements, and they're selling you, you know, fake meats.
And maybe not broccoli, but when you look at kale, for example, a bale of kale, because it's sheep fodder. This is what traditionally was fed to livestock. Kale. You could buy a bale of kale for like $5-10. Now you get a few leaves for that kind of money. So yeah, there's money to be made all around with plant foods. But yes, especially processed. But going back to people being angry, it brought back the memory of, I think that was your second conversation with Bobby when you were no longer vegan and he was still struggling. And obviously Bobby's not the type of guy that we're talking about here, but I did notice in that conversation, and I maybe pointed it out in the comments, when you guys were talking and you were talking up meat and how much better you feel, and just being high on it, essentially, it seemed to me like Bobby was mad, resentful, maybe a little bit. Like, it right then and there, I thought to myself, this guy's not going to be vegan very much longer. It's like he's got to be struggling, and that's my bias, because I always think that of people. But I guess it's not that difficult to predict a vegan quitting, because 90% of them do. But the conversation you guys, I always keep going back to it, because the conversation you guys had was like, it was friendly but tense. And did you see any signs or suspect that Bobby might be on his way out too at that time?
Honestly, no, I didn't, because
Uh-huh.
he was aligned with the ethical message more than I was, and he also had a lot of experience before going vegan on a meat-based diet. Like, his results as a meat eater and as a vegan both completely blew mine out of the water in terms of like athletic, aesthetic potential, right?
Hmm.
So even me going back to the meat, like even right now, like I'm not going to convince Bobby's vegan version was better than my current version. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, it's hard to compare people like that. But I do know that he was very aware of his digestive issues, but he was convinced at that time that he would be able to sort them out, getting like proper medication or whatever, because he was considering taking like probiotics or antibiotics to heal whatever he had going on. And he even says like he was basically eating 100% rice and protein powder. And I
Gee.
don't think we talked about it in that video, but I did know that that was going on behind the scenes. I don't know if we talked about it in that video though. But later on, he admits like that's what I was doing at that time, and that's what it took for me to even remain vegan. But of course, he was aligned with the ethical aspect of it. He talked about not wanting to kill animals back in the day when he was a kid, because he grew up in like a butcher's family essentially, and
Hmm.
it like hurt him to personally, kill these animals or know that he was eating dead animals. And me personally, I never had that. Like, I grew up fishing. I never hunted, but I'm down with hunting. I even as a vegan, I was like, I'm a big shooter. Like, I love guns. I've always been a fan of guns my whole life. I've been shooting since I was 5 years old, and I've grown up doing outdoors camping stuff. That's just the way that my family was. So I I knew about that stuff, and I even was researching hunting while I was a vegan, just because I'm fascinated by that lifestyle. But I never saw that as like a really bad thing. I just thought the meat was maybe unhealthy if you're eating like factory farm stuff. And I was like, okay, well, there's no point of eating this stuff. But anyways, I guess hopefully I answered that question.
Yes and no. I mean, I'm not too anal about it, as long as the conversation flows. But something you said is something that I've been thinking about also for quite some time, and it's the fact that it seems to me that a lot of vegans, and I'm also speaking from personal experience, having known some vegetarians, people that just didn't like meat, they had an aversion to it, especially, and then there were also these people who would eat meat as long as it wasn't attached to the bone, right? So you had like various tiers and levels of this aversion and disgust to meat. And I always related that back to the fact that people grew up in cities watching, cartoons with like, or having little plush animals, and really bringing in this metaphorical sense, I guess, animals into the home, and becoming like humanizing them. Whereas someone like myself, I've lived in big cities too, but like I've always known people that had chickens, or we had chickens. I knew people that had goats, and like my whole family, they raised livestock. My grandpa was a farmer, so on and so forth. So like I've seen animals killed, and and I ate them that same day, and it never seemed weird to me. So I could kind of understand a lot of these city dwellers that are completely isolated from their true nature, I would say, and why it's difficult for them to fathom how, why they should want to eat a friend. That's essentially what they call animals, right? A lot of them. But what's also interesting about that is, another thing I've noticed is, a friend of ours that used to live next door, she has a little kid, and they were vegetarians, so they didn't eat meat, but they witnessed us butchering goats, chickens, so on and so forth. And he was always fascinated. He didn't have like a natural aversion to it. You know what I mean? He responded very, very well to it. And then one day he came on his bike, because my wife was butchering a goat, and he watched her all day. And then he came back at night and asked to buy some meat. And it just blew our mind. He ended up not eating it, whatever, he punked out. But it's really, the point I'm trying to make is, vegans say, "Oh, well, you're just brainwashed into eating meat," and it's like, no, not really. Why couldn't I say that you guys are brainwashed into thinking that animals are our friends, when in reality, apart from the family dog or horse or whatever, they're food. You know what I mean? So it seems to me like you had more of a closer to nature of an upbringing, as did I, which, even though there was a lot of brainwashing, a lot of conditioning that meat bad, right? You still were able to uh, go back to your true nature, I suppose. It wasn't that difficult for you to. You were able to shed basically the programming, right?
For sure. I mean, I still, again, the ethical thing and the aversion to the meat. I mean, I said it a million times as a vegan. I said nobody quits eating meat because it tastes bad. Like,
Yeah,
it
totally.
tastes good. You know what I mean? Like these vegan. I mean, sure, at some points meat kind of like grossed me out because I was kind of like staying away from it as a vegan. But give me a break, man. You go through a kitchen that, drive by a burger joint that's pumping smoke out the top. That stuff smells good. I don't care how deep into veganism you are. These people are liars, basically. But yeah, I was able to pop back into that because I always followed a results based approach. And when the results didn't come to me as a vegan that was promised to me, then that's when I started to really look deeper, really get more and more upset with the things that were happening. About a year and a half in, I got 4 cavities that I mean, I'm a full grown adult. I've been brushing my teeth, twice a day and flossing for a long time. And I developed 4 cavities in a year, not even a year actually, because a year into veganism, I actually got my teeth um, checked out. And I actually made a video right after that happened. And I say in the video that my teeth feel so clean. I'm so, the dentist said that I'm doing great. And at that time, I was validated in my approach there. And then not even 6 months later, 6 months later, I go back again to the dentist and I had developed 4 cavities in between that time span. So that's what vegans don't understand. They're like, everything's perfect. I'm 2 years in. And then they don't realize that year 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 could just slip away from them. They don't
When
get that.
when you're in your 20s or even early 30s, you could eat fucking Twinkies and drink Coca-Cola, and you're gonna feel great. You know what I mean? That doesn't mean anything. I want to see old people who've been on it for years. Let's see how they're doing. You know what I mean? Because yeah, I'm not buying that.
100%. I wanted to bring something up when you were talking about the slaughtering of the animals. This is something that I think is one of those vegan memes that they've started to latch onto is this notion that if you are an ex-vegan or all meat eaters basically, they should be forced to source and kill their own animals. And they're basically saying if that was the case, if you had to kill your own animals, you wouldn't be able to do it. And not
Well,
only do I blatantly disagree with it, and obviously you've probably butchered and done your fair share of you know, animal
processing.
production processing. Uh, what my response is to them always is, okay, deal. I'll kill and process my own animals if you grow and farm 100% of your own fruits and vegetables.
Well, it's just such a silly idea. It's like, well, then, unless you could fix a car, you shouldn't drive one. You know what I mean? Like, where does this begin? Where does this sort of whack ass logic end? We live in a society that's very much specialized now, for better or for worse. The education system, and we're always being funneled into, this is who you're going to be. You're going to be a doctor, you're going to be a lawyer, you're going to be a farmer, butcher, you're going to be a vegan, whatever. So it's just like, yeah, if we want to take a very, direct, literal, I suppose, look and just talk about diet, yeah, nobody grows their own food. You know what I mean? Nobody produces their own food. We're all reliant on the supermarket, basically. Even someone like myself, where, we produce a lot of our own food, I still have to buy stuff. So this argument, it's like any other vegan argument, is completely and utterly hypocritical. Every single thing, from what I've seen, from what I've heard, every single little thing that a vegan says or puts on the meat eater, accuses you of doing, they're doing the same thing.
For sure, everyone's a hypocrite, basically. But
Yeah.
it's funny because if you do turn that argument around on them and you use the same logic, the fact is, I can produce my own food. If you had to survive a year on your own supply of animals and go out and hunt and kill your own animals, you could do it. But they could not do it. It would be impossible for them to do it. Like,
Well,
just based on climate, you know?
yeah, totally. And this is another reason, or the only reason why I started eating carnivore, is because for us, it's so much easier to produce calories that are animal based than it would be to grow carrots, cabbage. Like, I could have some chickens, so we got fowl and eggs, right? We could have some goats, so we got dairy and meat. Bam, like all major carnivore food groups with complete nutrition. In order to attain that with plants on the property where we are, I mean, we'd be breaking our backs trying to grow all these various foods, and then you'd have to worry about pests. And not to say that raising animals is easy, however, on calorie or on a nutrition basis, it's just so much easier, especially with poor quality land, to produce animal protein. This is something that people don't realize until they try to do this themselves. It's actually, and this leads me to my next point, which is, being environmentally friendly and sustainability. Obviously, you want both animals and plants because that's a perfect system, right? But it is so much easier to produce calories with animals than it is to grow plants for food and to sustain yourself, because we've tried it, and you don't even understand, like, the type of shit you have to deal with, and how difficult it is. Maybe you do, I don't know, how difficult it is to produce all the vitamins and nutrients and everything that you need from plants versus animals. You know what I mean? It
That's
boggles the
assuming
mind.
that it's even possible if you could grow it, but let alone trying to grow it. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't
Yeah,
think that people long term can really sustain on a 100% plant based diet at this point.
we agree. We agree, definitely. Yeah.
But some people appear to be doing it. That's like, I really want to know more about their situation if they claim that. But like you said, I mean, yes, I do know what it takes firsthand to grow that stuff because I was in Hawaii. I knew multiple people with farms. Evan Rock was one of them. He had a 17-acre farm. It's a big piece of land. He had durian trees. He had exotic fruits. He produced a lot of food on that land, but it was laborious. Like, they were in their garden and mowing the grass and keeping the weeds out and all this stuff that people don't even know. They
What
think
about
you just
pests? How do you deal with pests in a tropical climate like that?
that they have to use pesticide. They have to.
Of course, of
He's like,
course.
I'm done. He goes, you have to use pesticide. You have to use weed killer. Otherwise, you're out there like 8 hours a day.
Hmm.
And on top of that, you have to build a fence around the entire yard with a huge enclosure. Otherwise, pigs come and eat your food. And at that point, becomes self defense. Like, if the pig is eating your crops and you're out in the wilderness, like, what are you going to do? You're going to be vegan and be like, well, I'm not going to harm the pig. Like, he's going to eat your damn food. You don't understand. He doesn't care about you.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we've hybridized this exceptionally sweet fruit that never existed in nature, and it's all meat. It's all just sweet juiciness, right? How how these people think that this fruit is actually organic because the label says so, apparently they've never experienced the difficulty of trying to grow like oranges and stuff like that. Yeah, that's easy. But something like guanabana, what is that? Soursop in English, I think.
Yep.
Or papayas have a lot of problems. You know, there's all this exotic, delicious fruit, man-made fruit that I just don't see how you would grow it in a tropical climate without pesticides, because it's impossible to do that here unless you're out there spraying it every day with like hot pepper and
Yeah,
and garlic,
the
you know what I
natural
mean?
stuff that doesn't
Something that
work.
you no, something that you fermented for, you know, like a week, and you have to do it every day, especially if it's raining, you know what I mean? It's just, it boggles the mind how people think that they could sustain these extravagant, colorful, beautiful, you know, on Instagram vegan diets and yet call them sustainable. They're completely detached, which brings us back to what we were just talking about, nature. You know, they have no idea what it takes to grow food, to produce food, animal, plant, it doesn't matter. They have no clue what it is. And every fucking little uh, yuppie, you know, living in San Francisco or New York is a fucking environmentalist and an expert on agriculture, man. That shit just, it makes my blood boil, man. When I see these people, they're just fucking experts on everything, man. As soon as you become vegan, it's like you just have a PhD in fucking everything, and the amount of fiber that you consume is directly correlated with fucking compassion, I guess.
Oh my gosh. It's we've talked about this many times. Bobby and I have talked about this many times. In the vegan community, because it is so small, because it is so niche, and because the type of people it draws to it are not truly experts or truly elite in any way, it allows the average person to rise to the top. It's it's a it's a group of people that do not have many top of the line professionals.
Mm-hmm.
And so in a place like that, it gives people who are more regular and more average the ability to appear and have more authority and appear more knowledgeable in things. And that's why you're seeing guys like Goji Man, who
Yeah.
doesn't even have a master's yet, calling himself a nutritionist, who's currently sick, who's going to a school that doesn't even promote veganism as the best diet in the world. He admits this. He says that his school does not teach veganism as the main course. So essentially, you have a guy with a bachelor's degree who's formulating his own theories and is passing it off to the internet as absolute truth, especially making crazy statements like veganism is the only way, or a plant-based diet is the only way to heal your gut. Like, these are such wild statements
Mm-hmm.
that in the regular world it would not even be considered as a real thing, but in the vegan community they have such low expectations and such low level of expertise that they're
Mediocrity reigns supreme, basically.
mediocrity reigns supreme, and they're willing to accept this as fact, and then they're just blanketing all the ex-vegans with these this knowledge, this alleged knowledge. You know what I'm saying?
Because the rank and file are just completely ignorant. They don't really know anything.
They don't know
So
anything.
so as soon as you know, use some big words, you've been to school, you know a little bit of this and that, and you seem like an expert all of a sudden. And speaking of Goji Boy, I got a video coming up on that dude, because it seems
Great.
to me like he got some girl really fucking sick.
That's I would love to talk more about that. Like, I hope we get into some shit in this interview because I think that's what people want to see today, and I am down.
Dude,
And let's
free
pop off,
reign.
dude. I'm
Free
down.
reign. You see my videos. I don't give a
I know.
fuck.
That's why I wanted to get in here with you because you're not scared to say this stuff, and I'm not either. And people, I was
Spill the fucking beans. Spill the beans. Come on. Who's the next big vegan influencer to quit? Come on. You know this.
I got some theories,
In your
but
opinion.
I got some theories. I'm not going to name names. I'm not going to name names because it's a breach of confidence with myself. A lot of people have trusted my
Yeah.
um
No,
my like
I'm not talking
guidance,
about like the stuff that you know. I'm saying like, who do you
who I
suspect?
think.
Because I think John Venus is like on the brink, man. Someone just needs to push him over.
Yeah, a lot of people are saying that. Even Vegan Gains said that yesterday,
Yeah.
And I don't know. I don't know. I haven't been talking to him about that, so I don't know. I really don't know. But yeah, everybody, John Venus, John Venus. Vegan gains. I don't think so. If you want to talk about who I think is going down with the ship, so to speak, I think you got Freely. I think Durian Rider's already cheating on the diet. So if you want to, that's a speculation. I think he's already cheating on the diet. He actually responded back to my videos today. He popped off on me a little bit, saying I looked old, saying my gray hair, I look 40 plus. He said I gained weight. Like that's the funniest thing of all of them. I'm more lean and ripped than ever right now. Hilarious. Vegan gains, I think, will sink with the ship. I think he's too invested in being a vegan and being this like authority figure in the vegan community. Who else do we got, man? Who's even left? Like who's even relevant anymore?
I don't know. I don't follow the vegan community very much. Never have. But
true.
To me,
I think
a lot of them seem to be suffering, if not all of them. You know what I mean? Like take someone like Simnet, like good guy, really
no,
nice
I wanted
guy.
to bring him up. Yeah.
But like when you look at him, I mean, and I'm not trying to like say that I'm perfect or anything like that either. But if I'm eating the shit that's supposed to be killing me and I'm falling apart, and you're eating, the species specific diet that's supposed to be the best for all of us, then why the fuck do you look like you're, 45 at the age of 35 or something? You know what I mean? Like the guy's like, he's cracking, you know what I mean? For starters, physically, like he looks great. Don't get me wrong, but that's creatine, and that's
Yeah.
that's meat.
Yeah, Derek is a great example that people point to and say, well, this guy's doing it and he's successful at it. And I say, okay, I can't deny that. His results are good. He hasn't been vegan more than 5 years, I believe, which I like to consider it's the first checkpoint. 5 years is the checkpoint. Most people do not make it 5 years or over 5 years. And that's where you do a big reality check where you say, is this shit working for me or is it not? Because I've seen the ups and the downs. And basically what you decide at 5 years is that it's time to start supplementing like crazy. You say, okay, if I'm going to go the distance and I'm going to commit to this, then I'm going to need to start supplementing. I'm going to need to start getting all, the vitamin D supplements, the DHA supplements, all those like higher end supplements, not just B12. And somebody said, how can you prove they're vegans? We can't prove they're vegans. We can't prove what they're eating or what they're not eating. I don't think they're cheating. I really don't think they're cheating, but I also don't think they're 100% honest about how they feel on a day-to-day basis. I don't think they're 100% honest about their digestion fucking up and the bloating and the gas that they have. From who I knew, 50% struggled with digestion. 50% right off the bat. A lot of people had healing issues where they had long-standing issues that were not healing. A lot of people had teeth issues. If you were to sum it up with all three of those groups, if at least having one of those issues, pretty much 100% of vegans have at least one of those issues. Long-term vegans, right? Within 2 years, man, you could, and like you said, your early 20s, you could eat Twinkies and shit and it'll be fine. But if you're talking early 20s, fresh vegan, coming in hot off a bunch of animal storage, vitamins and minerals, you'd be fine for a couple years. I look back at my old videos when I was vegan for about a year and I was still in the gym working out. Man, my body looked different physically. Like my wrists were thicker, my shoulders were thicker, my traps were thicker. And it wasn't just because I was consistently in the gym. It was like once that stuff faded away as I was vegan longer and longer, like we're talking, like, how do you work your face out? You see the vegans, they're deteriorating in their face. They're getting gaunt. Their eyes are starting to suck back into their head. Another thing that I like to point out is the very dry forehead. Typically vegans 3 years and longer have a very dry forehead with like these little micro bumps, kind of like a sandpaper effect. So that's another thing that people don't notice that they're not talking about.
Shit.
What's that?
Vegan Gains got that shit. I noticed the other day when you pointed it out.
Yeah, a lot of people have that.
Yeah. I don't know, man. To me, I agree with you on someone like Vegan Gains. He's so invested into this. He's going to write this bitch off the cliff. It is what it is. But in my opinion, and I've seen this, he has a freezer full of fucking meat. So
doesn't somebody point out he has
dog? It's for the dog. Okay, whatever.
Somebody points out that so he does feed his dog non-vegan food, right?
I don't follow the guy anymore.
Oh,
but
okay. All right.
In the past, I saw Jasmine opening up the freezer full of meat, and it was for the dog allegedly that they used to have. I don't know the details, but come on. And it was like vacuum packed, vacuum sealed meat. They look like quality cuts. You know what I mean? Like, really, this is what you feed your dog. Come on.
And all these cat lovers too. That's another thing about vegans. They all love cats. What are you feeding your cat? You're feeding that
Exactly.
shit low quality tuna off the boat that they scrape the fins together, and you're putting that right in the cat bowl.
Ethical.
It's totally ethical because the cat needs it. But what
Yeah.
about yourself? You need
But
it
did the
too.
cat kill it though? Did the cat kill it?
The cat did not kill it, and you're buying it.
So there you go. I mean, this is the idiocy, like I chuckle because like we're kind of being stupid right now because this is what it comes down to ultimately. These arguments are fucking childish. They're asinine, you know what I mean? It's ridiculous, but I don't know, man. I was gonna ask you, like, because this phenomenon is kind of weird, I guess. I'm kind of a judgmental prick. It is what it is. But
That's
like
cool. Me too. I'm into it.
but like this whole there seems to be a commune or a community of vegans somewhere in Hawaii. I don't care about locations, it's not important, but like how does something like this happen? Is there like a guru that people follow or a retreat and it just builds from there? Like how did you end up there, and how did it all, if you know, how did it all begin? Where did this come from?
Well, for me, I decided to move to Hawaii after going to a vegan retreat hosted by my buddy Evan Rock, and I was there for a week with 7 other vegans, all chicks. You know, I at the
I
time I
see.
was,
That
yeah,
makes sense now.
hey, you get me. No, really, I was the only guy. I signed up actually the week of the retreat, and I didn't even know that these retreats really existed. And I was already vegan for a little over 2 years. I basically had a bunch of cash in the bank, and I had no job at the time because I just got laid off. So I was like, dude, I basically have like 6 months of unemployment ahead of me to do whatever I want to do. I went on this vegan retreat, just lived it up in the sun, saw the waterfalls, all this stuff, and it's great. It was great. Then I
That's
decided
when the libido was still working.
the libido was still popping. Yeah, the libido was confirmed working very well at that point. And then we went to and then I moved back, or sorry, I went back home, then I moved back to Hawaii about 8 months later, and then I was there for 2 years after that. But as far as the guru aspect, a lot of people do come to Hawaii and decide to move there after these vegan retreats. And there's nothing wrong with the retreats. They're fantastic. You get taken care of all week. It builds community, but you got to remember that when people are all together believing and doing the same stuff, it becomes easy to like let time pass before you're really considering these things. Like, let's say I started really deteriorating or noticing that my shape was really not going so well because I was around a lot of meat eaters. They're like, Drew, you're like, we're blowing by you in the gym. You're not gaining strength anymore. What's the deal? Like, those things would make you like look inward and consider it. But in Hawaii, you're kind of like around other people that are doing the same shit. Like, I was one of the most athletic people there, trying to actively work out. Like, I probably had one of the best, physiques there. And it, like I said, again, it's the mediocrity reigning supreme, you know. So I worked out at home, and I was like, I had a decent physique, but in reality, like, was I super strong? No, like, shit. I mean, that doesn't mean anything.
So basically, people go to these retreats, they fall in love with Hawaii, the lifestyle, and they just move there. And this seems to be like a whole bunch of vegans in one spot, and it just kind of blows my mind. There's something like that over here. I don't really get into all that because, well, but it's just always blown my mind and like fascinated me that people would congregate and make these social groups based on what they eat. You know what I mean? Like, don't get me wrong, I eat what I eat, and like I'm pretty strict for the most part. But if I go out, I don't like choose this or that person. It's just like we go to eat. You eat what you eat, and I eat what I eat. It's not a big deal. And if I eat some carbs or veggies for one day, big fucking deal. It's not a big deal. So it always kind of blew my mind how it seems that there's these enclaves of just people who eat the same shit and vegans, and they just like stick together, and it's seems kind of like a support group. So then when a guy like you comes in who's not really fully committed, and you begin to expose certain cracks, you know what I mean, and then the benefits of going back to eating more normally, uh, maybe it doesn't really take that much to implode this whole structure, because it's not that strong to begin with. These people are like a support group. They need to reinforce each other's beliefs, and they need to keep lying to one another. I'm speculating here, you know what I mean? You were there. I haven't. So if you have
This
any,
is what this is what I like to say. Most of the people are pretty sharp, and most people get into veganism for the health. I would say less people get into veganism for the hardcore ethics, and usually those people are kind of separated out. They're doing their own ethical animal protesting thing, and then the rest of the health focused vegans are sort of like just trying to live their life in a normal way, a productive, like healthy way. They want to feel vibrant, whereas the ethical, and I see this on YouTube all the time, the ethical vegans are typically the ones that are promoting the processed food. They're vegan really long term, but they're also not very athletic. They don't demand anything of their bodies. That their focus is on the ethics, and to them that's the driving force. Whereas with the health focused vegans, they are willing to listen to outside opinions outside of veganism if it's making sense, and they want to see results as well. So yeah, you start getting results and you show it to them, they're going to be like, okay, like what bonded us together was not the diet. The diet just happened to be the one thing we all agreed on that was the healthiest way to live at that time. So a lot of people left once they saw that there was other options that were indeed healthier, or getting better results. People I would have never expected, honestly, to leave and eat, outside the vegan diet.
well, at one point, I'm sure you didn't think you would either.
For sure, yeah.
So what do you eat these days?
What do I eat these days? Can I answer this guy? Because he asked me a direct question in the chat. Would you
Totally.
mind?
Yeah, go ahead.
So this is, I also want to point this out. So Psychic Outlaw asked if I or any other vegans I knew wore leather or hear them speak of it. And this is something that really, really pisses me off when people are commenting about ex-vegans and they're saying you were never vegan, you were plant-based. No, I was fucking vegan. All the ex-vegans that I know were fucking vegans. We weren't plant-based. We were vegan. We did not buy animal products in any way, shape, or form. We were all very careful about it. We were that annoying person in the restaurant asking if the bread had dairy in it or eggs. Like, we were legit vegan. So if I bought animal products and bought leather and all this other stuff, I would admit to being plant-based, but that's not what I was. I did align with the vegan message. So for people to say you were never vegan, basically go fuck yourself, because you are wrong. I don't care. I disagree with you. You cannot take that 4.5 years away from me. And this is something I want to cover soon in a video, is the ungratefulness and the arrogance again of the vegans. Vegans should be treating ex-vegans like fucking retired military members. You should get a handshake when you leave veganism. They say, you know what, sir? I'm sorry it didn't keep working for you. Thank you for your service. Thank you for the animals that you saved those 4.5 years. And thank you for everything that you've done for veganism. But instead, they're met with criticism, arrogance, ungratefulness. Like, yo, at the end of the day, I've done a lot for veganism. People are criticizing me for some of the stuff that I do. In my Instagram profile, I have a link to my vegan and vegetarian dating app. People telling me I need to take my vegan and vegetarian dating app out of my own profile. Why are you promoting this? You're a scammer. Are you kidding me? I've invested tens of thousands of dollars into this app and thousands of hours of my time into this app to give vegans a free service to use that benefits their lives. I have over 11,000 members in my app. I have over 3,000 vegan matches, love matches. You know how hard it is to find another vegan in real life? I've done more for veganism than 99.9% of these motherfuckers. They're so ungrateful, and the shit pisses me off. So that's what I have to say about that.
And just for the record, you were at least for a while whole food plant-based, because that's another one of those accusations, charges, is that you were water fasting, you were raw food vegan, blah blah blah, right? You did it right, or whatever the understanding of right is, right?
The most agreed upon proper way to do the vegan diet is the 100% whole foods plant-based diet, which I did for 4 to 5 months to a T.
With supplements.
No supplements, only B12. I did
Okay.
not do protein powders, and I did not do even smoothies at that time. I was doing juice, I was juicing oranges. So that's like the one thing that I was doing that was technically not a whole food if you want to really get down to the details of that. But I did have good digestion at that time. And but but and this is a big but, I was destroying my teeth day after day, and I was not able to gain any athletic performance whatsoever. So people can make of that what they will. So yeah, I
You're
did it.
not an herbivore, essentially.
Just
Just because we can eat and assimilate some plant nutrition, well, so can a dog, really. But
exactly. I mean, at the end of the day, the results matter. Does this work? Does it not work? Don't point to a study. Don't point to another vegan. Don't tell me about the doctor, what the doctor told you. If you can't eat the shit and you can't get accustomed to that over the course of 4 years, what more time do you need? Why do you need a detox for your whole life? No.
yeah,
It's
if this is the diet we should all be eating, it shouldn't be so goddamn hard to figure out. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we didn't have cavemen back in the day with a magnifying glass figuring out the nutrients and the macronutrients in these foods, deciding what we needed to eat. We ate what was available for millions and millions and millions of years, probably raw, and it probably wasn't plant foods. So that just, I mean, that's like common sense, right?
So you kind of went there on a bit of a tangent, talking about studies. You just mentioned them, but I also saw your video, your recent video, talking about anecdotes and how that is all that matters. And I couldn't agree more. I won't say that that's all that matters in the grand scheme of things, but to me, it's the things that I could actually observe that matter. So I completely agree with you. And what I wanted to add to that is that, what's so ironic about vegans saying, oh, that's just anecdotal, and then they just dismiss it like they don't even know what anecdotal really means. But if that's anecdotal, then all the studies that veganism is based on, namely population studies, are essentially a collection of anecdotes that somebody applied a statistical method to, and tortured the data to get the conclusion that they wanted. So I don't see how that's very much different, because essentially population studies are nothing but anecdotes, except at least with the people around you, you get to observe them and their progress as it's happening, as you're concentrating on it because you're into the same thing and you're experimenting, blah blah blah, so you're like into it. Versus a lot of these studies that prove something about the vegan diet, supposedly, they're just based on questionnaires. How many times a week did you eat legumes in the last year? So essentially this is what a lot of these studies are based on. And it's just another one of them hypocrisies. But I completely agree with you. Whatever you want to call an anecdote, and I would disagree personally that, like, what happened to you, your personal account, I would say that that's a case study. I wouldn't call that an anecdote. That's a case study. But
Right.
if you want to call that an anecdote, then I very much care about that. I think those are very important. And what pisses me off about the vegan community is that they completely ignore those as if this shit wasn't happening. You know what I mean? It's bordering on insanity, I would have to say.
Yeah, I actually thought about bringing that up in this interview before we got going. I wanted to bring that up, is that the collection of anecdotes is important to vegans, but the people who are documenting everything in chronometer today, eating the right shit today with the correct current recommendations
That's
today,
science. That is science.
it's science. Like, I have that stuff, and the thing too is, I even got a little bit of hate because of the video I made where I talk about my chronometer consumption, the foods I ate. People even said, like, anybody can fake a chronometer, like a chronometer entry. Are you kidding me? No. Like, I wish there was a little timestamp on the chronometer saying last edited, 2017 or whatever that is, because that's bullshit, dude. I didn't fake those at all. And the other thing too is I ate a very, very, very consistent way. I specifically ate a very, very consistent way. Like, I had the same exact smoothie every single day to the same ounce even. I knew exactly the measurements that I ate, and I knew exactly how much I needed to eat in terms of lentils, because I made the same stuff day after day after day. And I had like the same few dinners that I would prepare, that, like, over and over and over. And nobody is going to ever have a more consistent, year of eating than I had my final year of veganism. Like flat out, that was probably the best designed vegan diet that I could possibly have for my goals. And it was absolutely terrible. And people want to say, like, well, like I did gain strength a little bit, but I also gained a lot of fat with it, like way too much fat. And there's no way to have one without the other on the vegan diet because the calories are always going to come with the protein, you know? And there's no way to eat lean and clean on a vegan diet. Like you have to have that. People or vegans think that lentils, for instance, are super, super high. Sorry. They think that lentils are very high protein, but that's only in relation to other vegan foods, like other plant foods.
It's nitrogen, and is that protein assimilated by our bodies? I made a video about this a long time ago. These tests that supposedly measure the protein quantity of any of these foods, they don't account for digestibility. It's all paper values, and they have a test. This is the UN or the WHO, part of the UN. They have a test that's a lot more precise, and it does take into account digestibility, but they've refused to use it. So, just paper values, come on. And as far as what you did and that being science, I mean, that's precisely what Dave Feldman, I don't know if you're familiar with his cholesterol research. Maybe that's going to be, your Carnivore 2.0 stage when you start digging deeper into the culture and discovering new avenues of and what's going on. But anyway, that's essentially what he does, is he literally measures and photographs every single thing he eats, and then he goes and gets blood tests and measures his cholesterol, and he conducts all these experiments. And his research has been so instrumental in helping people in the low carb community understand what it is that's happening insofar as their lipid panels and their health. You know what I mean? Because people are feeling better than ever before, but their cholesterol skyrockets and they're all freaked out, like, oh, what's going on? Am I dying? How could this be? I feel amazing, but my doctor wants to put me on the statin. So yes, whatever you did, don't let anybody tell you that that's anecdotal. If you recorded everything and there's videos and you have the records, that's science. Just because some dweeb, I could review it for you and we could call it peer review if need be. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
It's like, has peer review ever passed peer review? If peer review is so important to you, and like Bart makes these types of points a lot, Bart K, in a debate with Vegan Gains and Frank Tufano, he said something about, hierarchy of evidence. You're presenting this saying that opinion is bullshit, basically, in this hierarchy of evidence. But this hierarchy of evidence, the whole thing that you're presenting, the pyramid, is nothing but opinion. So,
Well, the interesting thing about that case study, so the vegans have an excuse for everything, basically, a canned excuse for everything. So if I say, okay, I measured everything and my digestion was still bad, they say, okay, well, something was wrong with your digestive system. Something was wrong with you that you should have fixed before you left veganism and that you will not be able to fix by leaving veganism.
That's Goji Man's spiel, right? Underlying gut issues.
Yeah, and then now that's been this thing that's become like 100% truth, basically, throughout the vegan community, and they're very satisfied with this answer because it means that they have to stay, basically, like they have to stay vegan, and the people who have left were wrong, right?
Yeah.
So it continues like promoting that thing, and yeah, I mean, what's to say that if you're 95% carnivore, you don't consume a little bit of kale each week and a little bit of sweet potato each week that keeps your ability going to digest these foods? Like, I don't have as big of an issue now digesting these foods because I'm eating them in reasonable quantities.
Yeah.
Whereas like vegans are like, eat 3 pounds of potatoes so that you can get, 900 calories out of that.
What
like,
about all your micronutrients and everything else? You know what I mean? And
it's,
then what about the oxalate content or the fact that
oxalates doesn't exist in the vegan vocabulary. That's not even a consideration.
Speaking of food, you got a little question here. Let me read it out to you. I don't know if you saw it. Gregor's Daily Dozen. This is from Lazi Jakovic. Gregor's Daily Dozen will smash your digestion. How much money did you spend on flaxseed, Drew? I bought enough to feed an entire Indian village for a year.
That's funny. I actually ate a lot of chia seeds, and I bought them at Costco, organic chia seeds. They were super cheap, to be honest with you. I would go through a bag like every couple months So like I wasn't spending a lot, maybe like $10 every couple months. You have to buy them in quantity though. If you try and go to the health food store, Whole Foods, and drop cash on chia seeds, you're gonna probably spend a lot more money. And in Hawaii, oh my god, you could spend 3 or 4 times as much as I was spending buying it from the health food store. But Costco for some reason had like an insane deal on it, and I was able to get it pretty cheap.
Because they raped the South American peasant basically to get it. That's why it was cheap.
Yo, JG Lee, I seen you up in the comments, man. I appreciate your input on a lot of this stuff. You know what's up, and I appreciate you keeping the dust down in that last video, because there's a few people, and it's given me some love back to the YouTube community, because like it's not easy taking all the crap that people throw your way, and I'm sure you get a lot of it too. But like the people that are there to kind of like moderate the comment section and like help keep these people under control so that these threads don't just get mob mentality out of control, I really appreciate that.
Yeah, I don't worry about the trolls. They do get to you initially, but like I've been making videos on YouTube for like 12 years now.
It's not so much for me. It's not so much for me. Like I like to consider myself having thick skin, but the thing is that people see their ignorant, hateful, like arrogant remarks, and then they jump in and they start. It's like a mob mentality. Once that snowball gets going,
yeah,
that's a problem, because other people who are around who are more easier influenced, like if I just disabled the comments on some of my videos and people had to watch the content, they would just have to formulate their own opinion. But that's not what's going on. They're seeing what's going on in the comments, and before they even finish the video, they're already liking this negative, ignorant, hateful comment.
Someone's
just
translating for you, basically, right?
Exactly, and they're just going with it, and that's like the blind leading the blind, basically.
Yeah, that's why I police my comments. I don't give a shit. There's no free speech in my house. You know what I mean?
That's what's up. That's what I do too now.
So,
I'm over it.
If someone's making a legitimate argument and they disagree with me, then it is what it is. But if you're not contributing anything to the conversation, you're just pollution, and I don't got no time for that shit, man. I just don't.
That's what you have to do. That's what you have to do. And then you know what? You keep sweeping. You keep sweeping the trash out the door, and guess what? The house gets clean. The message gets cleaner and cleaner. The people that are supposed to be around are there. They're supporting. They're now the majority. It's like getting your gut bacteria back in balance. The good bacteria polices the bad bacteria, man. Vegans, thank you for this knowledge. You guys educated me on this.
The YouTube channel microbiome.
Yep.
Word. So what else is bugging you? What else do you want to get off your chest, man?
It's been a whirlwind of a few days, but
you're a busy guy.
Yeah,
you're all over the place, man. You're like a talented kid in the porno, hitting it from every angle.
I know. I feel like a hoe. Like I'm just going from channel to channel, and it's nuts. And there's people hitting me up in my DMs that want coaching and consultation and stuff like that. And I'm very grateful that there's like this little explosion of interest right now.
You're talking about your vegan recovery program specifically?
Yeah, I have people hitting me up. That's why it's funny. I had some woman yesterday that was a fan of some other vegan channel or whatever, and then she wrote to me and she goes, you need to consider what you're doing. I have 2 daughters that are doing very well, and they've been vegan since they were 2, and I've been vegan for 10 years, mostly raw. And then she did mention a couple parts where she was like, I've fallen off the vegan thing and then always come back to it, And I'm like, okay, cool. And then literally moments later, I get a message from another mother that has another young kid that is telling me how guilty she feels for having her kid raised on a vegan diet. And a lot of these kids that are raised on vegan diets, they don't want to go back to animal products because they are indoctrinated from birth that the animals are their friends, because their mother's been like, since they were 2 years old, like, don't eat your friends, don't eat your friends. And now the mothers are like, oh my God, what have I done? And they're trying to turn the tide now. And these kids are basically saying no. They don't want to eat the animal foods, And they've seen tremendous results, by the way, when they do give them the animal foods. Like, let's say they can sneak some eggs into their diet, because these parents are feeling guilty giving them beef or whatever. And the kids are like recovering, like the kids are getting stronger. Like I've already had 2 mothers that I've coached. So
the people that are against what you're doing and giving you these anecdotal examples of someone they know that's supposedly doing well on the vegan diet, are they still maintaining that that proves that somehow means that the vegan diet is optimal for all of us? Is that what they're trying to say, or are they just saying that? What are they saying? You did it wrong. What's their problem exactly? Because look, veganism has this hypothesis, right? Being the plant-based diet is optimal for all of us, right? No
Hmm.
exceptions,
No
right?
exceptions. Right.
And the way you prove that hypothesis is by time and time and time again proving it with anecdotes, if you will, right? But you need a mountain of those before we can say with little doubt that the hypothesis is probably true. Maybe it's graduated to a theory. But as soon as you get that one person that has failed on the proper vegan diet, that completely destroys the whole hypothesis. And this is how science should be conducted. If you could, what you want to do as a scientist is look to disprove your hypothesis, not prove your hypothesis, because there's bias, and it's not that difficult necessarily to present your data as if it were supporting a hypothesis. But again, as soon as you have that one example that disproves the hypothesis, the whole thing goes to shit.
Totally.
That's
Yeah.
how it should be done.
And this is the weird thing, man. Like, when you go vegan, you want that shit to work. Vegans are so proud of themselves. Like, they're the most annoying people in the world. Everybody knows that. They
Confirmation.
want to tell everybody about their vegan diet and how amazing it is. Dude, I went through all that too. Like, why do people assume that you wanted it to fail or you wanted to go back to meat? I didn't have meat cravings. I didn't have any of that. I wanted it to work just as much as anybody else. Otherwise, I wouldn't have done it for 4.5 years. It just wasn't working, and I thought I could make it work because my ego was involved in keeping me vegan. That's what was keeping me vegan. It wasn't like anything else. It was basically me trying to prove to myself and maybe to even other people that I could keep making this thing work. And really, once I just let that go, and I was just like, okay, maybe these other meat eating weirdos like Sean Baker saying that that you can eat 100% meat and be totally good to go. Like, how can that be true? That's so stupid sounding. But you open your mind a little bit, because my first exposure was actually Phil Escott and Sean Baker.
Mhm.
And I was trolling both of their channels, like with my real, I go in the channels and I talk shit, but on my real account. I'm not in there like with some fake account.
Puppet.
Yeah. And so basically he was real cool with me, and I was like, okay. So I kept researching. It took me a few days, and then I actually came back to Phil Escott's channel. I was like, hey man, like, you got a vegan convert here, basically. Like, I am trying it, and actually first couple days are already going pretty well. I can't explain it, but I'm gonna keep going,
You couldn't disprove their hypothesis, basically.
Correct. Yeah.
So, yeah, and that's what makes this data so powerful, because not only by the virtue of these vegans failing are we disproving the hypothesis just face value right then and there, but also what you said is that these people really wanted to be vegan. Their bias was in favor of the hypothesis, and they
Correct.
still proved it. So
that was my point. Yes, correct.
Yeah, that's why the data is so strong, in my opinion. And for this community that calls themselves scientific and always wants you to provide citations of peer-reviewed studies and all this other fucking bullshit, you know what I mean? For them to completely not understand what science actually is, that's what pisses me off.
You would assume that people that are like vegan and want veganism to work would just go to the grave, and that's what some are doing that, but a lot of them are not doing that. They're not willing to do it, and that's why you see this huge failure rate. This person asked me if I think Ellen Fisher is a legit or fake vegan. So I have met Ellen Fisher and spent a reasonable amount of time with her. She lived at one of my close friends' house in Hawaii for a few weeks at a time, a couple different times. She's a very nice lady. Okay, so I'm not talking shit here. I do think she is a real vegan. She's very passionate about veganism from like the ethical stance, and her kids are definitely vegan. Her husband's vegan, and I've eaten vegan dinners with them and stuff like that. But who fucking knows what people are doing behind the scenes? Because I could easily, especially in Hawaii, justify eating eggs. And I have a feeling that a lot of people are sneaking in eggs behind the scenes, especially the long-term vegans.
How's that? Are like the neighbor's chickens coming into your backyard and laying eggs or something like that?
Dude, there's wild chickens everywhere in Hawaii, so it's like it's not seen as a bad thing to consume or to to have chickens around
Yeah.
in Hawaii because they're kind of like everywhere. So it's like, okay, so they're in my yard or they're not in my yard. They're going to be there anyway.
Right.
So I could see people easily justifying that. And if they're going to lay the eggs anyways, like maybe we want to try that, you know?
So Australian vegans should go hunt camels, seeing as they're overpopulating and they're an invasive species. I don't know if you heard of this, but
I didn't
that's what
hear
it
that.
reminded me of. Yeah, there's like allegedly 1 million
What? There's
camels
taking
just
over?
roaming in Australia, and obviously they're not native to there. So
That's amazing. I would like to
eat
have
them.
one of those as a pet. Someone else said, what are you eating now exactly? I never answered that. Did you ask me that?
Yeah, but dude, I'm easygoing, so whatever's clever.
Basically, eggs, beef, chicken, fish, all varieties, conventional, non-conventional. I'm not rich, so
Yeah.
I can't afford $18 a pound grass-fed ribeyes every single day. I do eat the $5 a pound non-grass-fed ribeye. It is what it is. But I feel 1,000 times better eating conventional ribeyes than I do eating the highest quality organic vegan food. I can say that. I'm spending a lot less money now than I was back as a vegan, which is interesting. And yeah, so I eat those in abundance. I eat 2 meals a day. I eat roughly 2,500 calories a day, give or take a few hundred calories, depending on if I'm trying to gain weight or lose weight. Right now, I'm kind of cutting down a little bit. I want to get like really fucking lean and ripped just to basically do it. And my performance is still going up every day, so I still feel very strong. I just hit a PR max yesterday on the Olympic ring, 17 pull-ups. So I'm pretty happy with that. That's not easy to do, and I've done that in 3 months. Like I started at the very beginning of January this new year. I started working out again. I took 2.5 months off, basically, just like doing whatever. Like I was drinking, I was eating all the holiday foods, and just experimenting, playing around, seeing really what it was going to do to me. I actually lost weight doing all that stuff because I always have a high metabolism. I'm just like a leaner framed person. So I actually lost a few pounds. So since that beginning of January, I've put on I put on like 10 pounds and then I kind of cut down a little bit. So right now I'm like 145 pounds in the morning and just pretty damn lean right now. So I'm kind of like, I'm getting down there to the low body fat percentage. But yeah, I'll do like a pound of meat each meal and milk. I also like dairy as well, by the way. I eat tons of dairy. So
And pasteurized is fine with you? You don't have any issues?
Ultra pasteurized, you got to be careful with, especially if you're doing like OMAD, because there's just not that much stuff flowing through the pipes. So ultra pasteurized milk for me just completely cemented me shut, man. Like
Oh,
I don't
shit.
want to get too into details, guys, but it was a a rough situation. Let's just put it that way. I was begging to basically poop for days.
I've heard this before about pasteurized dairy. Yeah, eating
Raw
that
is
on it.
amazing if you can get it.
Yeah, I can.
Any mental issues? I'm 5'10", by the way, Cole Slice, but any mental issues? No, I didn't have mental issues. I consider myself a successful vegan. Despite what people want to say, I was a successful vegan. I had better results than most vegans. I ate a lot. I ate a lot of protein. I kept up with my nutrients for the most part. Like I actually knew what was going on in chronometer. I had some understanding of health and fitness before going vegan. Like I was armed to the teeth with as much knowledge as somebody would hope to have as a regular person, not like a nutritionist. You know what I mean? And I don't. What is plus? Why does Bobby's perspective want transhumanism? What is that? What is transhumanism?
Oh, it's a lot of different things, but it's basically improving on. The simplest way to explain that is like a cyborg would be transhuman, right? More human than human, kind of not. But there are other forms of transhumanism too. Like you could even put all the sex changes that have been going on lately. Transgenderism could also be considered that. It's basically improving on the human by means of technology and making the human more human, or just better, whatever that means, right? And scary concept in my opinion.
Well, you got all this plastic surgery, Botox, breast implants. I mean, we're
That's
already
it.
there, like it's
That's
improving the attraction quality of certain people. So I don't see why we
Is
can't
it
improve.
though?
Well, I'm from Southern California, so I'm kind of used to this stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm not complaining, you know what I'm saying?
Fake tits are nice when they're dressed and you're just looking at them, but the hands-on,
Well, yeah. There's nothing like a good pair of real ones. I agree.
yeah, it is what it is. So you're not doing any like fasting or one meal a day or anything. You're just eating as you normally would, maybe, except how's satiety or satiation? I'm not sure what the exact difference is, but you know what I'm saying.
Satiation is 10 out of 10. I mean, I eat, let's say, I eat a 1,200 calorie meal of 100 grams of protein. Man, I'm going to be full for 8 hours.
Hmm.
And then I eat another one before I go to bed. Like yesterday, I actually struggled to get 2 meals in. And my last meal was really lean, really light on calories. It was like 4 eggs and a can of tuna and a glass of milk. That was it. So that's probably like not even 1,000 calories right there.
Any
And
plants here and there?
yeah, I'll throw in some plants. I mean, I like plants for flavor, to be honest. Like I'll do some steamed kale every once in a while. I haven't been doing it in a while because I did notice that when I was doing steamed kale, I was getting like a pinching effect in my stomach, kind
Huh.
of like a stomach ache, but it was extremely relative to the amount of kale I ate. And
Fermentation.
no, I think it was actually the oxalates because if you
Oh,
watch
really?
those, like Bart K talking about oxalates with that young guy, I forgot his name. Basically, they talk about how
Coach
the
something.
I forgot his name,
Yeah, I know who you're talking about. Foreign
young
guy.
guy,
Yeah.
but it's the oxalates are a physical structure that like
Hmm.
are almost diamond shard shaped,
Yeah.
and they can physically puncture your gut lining. So I don't know if that's in my head or what, but I once I was aware of that.
No, a vegan once told me that sweet potato leaves are really good for you. So,
Mm,
because I was still on that tip back then, years ago, I started eating them and they would literally just like burn my throat. And like
mm.
these more native kinds of spinach, I get the exact same sensation. And it wasn't until recently that I realized that what was happening is most likely oxalates were just like cutting me up or something. Like literally, it felt like eating something really spicy, except the spiciness was right here. It was the weirdest thing ever. And I just cut that shit out based on that.
Yeah, I can see that. I have like here. So something interesting I think people will want to know, especially people that are really going down the carnivore path, is like which carbs are safe. Like because I do want carbs sometimes, just even for just variety purposes. I don't think that they're necessarily uh mandatory for people to eat. If they just really don't want them, I think that's fine. But I do notice a certain athletic performance increase when I do consume carbs, especially the day after. But the ones that seem to be quite uh, innocuous are white rice and processed carbs like bread and like burger buns and stuff like that because there's just no fiber there. So you're just really getting pure carbohydrates. It's simple and also fruit sugars as well. So if I'm eating like berries or I haven't really had any other fruit, but if it was a pretty watery fruit, like let's say a mango or an orange or something, I bet these things would be fine for me to eat.
Sourdough or just refined flour bread, regular
Refined.
what?
I'm talking like hamburger buns. I actually have
Oh,
not had a piece of straight up bread in a long time since before January, since I started this workout regime. I haven't had a piece of bread at all like that, sourdough or anything.
milk has some carbs also, unless you're
Yes.
consuming
And I
yogurt and
noticed a
stuff like
difference too,
that.
by the way. Like consuming those trace carbs in the milk does make a difference. It does pump your glycogen up and it does help you out with gym performance. So that might be the missing link for some people struggling in the gym. And a lot of people are like, I'm lactose intolerant. I can't handle milk. But most people haven't tried dairy while doing carnivore. I think that's a different story. Back when you did dairy, you were probably consuming all these plant foods and stuff like that. And maybe that's what the issue was because there is a relation to calcium intake and oxalates binding together. That could be fucking you up and causing digestive issues. There's so many other things about the diet, the combinations of the food and stuff like that. But obviously, you should be listening to your own body. And if something is not working out, then take it out. Simple as that.
Was going to ask you, did you ever get a blood test while you were vegan and struggling, or at any one point in your during your vegan journey?
That's another interesting thing. I got blood tests done after 2 years being vegan, like
Hmm.
exactly 2 years, and my blood tests were very, very good. So I knew that I went into veganism healthy, and I was remaining healthy at least to the 2 year mark. But I was not able to gain any muscle mass. Any my athletic performance was starting to suffer. I was starting to get a little bit of fat around my belly, which was not there when I went vegan. Actually, no, I could take that back. It was there. I was like 160. I was working out and stuff like that, but I was like a lot stronger and bigger. Um, so yeah, I was losing weight because I was cycling, but I wasn't getting super lean, which I thought was really weird. Because I bet you on a carnivore diet, if I were to go ride 100 miles a week like I used to be, I bet I'd be fucking shredded as hell within like a couple months. You know what I mean?
So that's what you meant when you said that you might have developed some insulin resistance?
Yes, that's exactly what I meant. Is that I was like gaining fat
Skinny
for no
fat, yeah.
reason. Skinny fat. I was skinny. I was totally skinny fat.
Yeah. Are you gonna, after some point during this new carnivore journey, are you gonna look to have your blood markers checked? Gonna do a blood test maybe? If you
If
feel like,
let's if I feel like I need it, or if the channel is demanding it or something like that, then
yeah.
I wouldn't mind doing it. I expect to see my LDL sky high. I
Hmm.
expect to see my cholesterol high, and knowing what I know now about it, feeling a lot more comfortable with it, I wouldn't be too surprised and wouldn't really care that much. I honestly am kind of on that tip where it's all good. And I want to ask you, do you know a lot about like a triglyceride and HDL ratio? Are you familiar with this marker?
I know a little bit, yeah. It's one of the more important ones. And what's interesting about it is that, the low carb community will have their own markers and mainstream medicine will adhere to slightly different markers, but triglycerides over HDL, or is it the other way around? That's one of those markers that both camps agree on. So that's a very good marker, yeah. What?
Um, because I just wanted to know, like, a lot of people in my comments when I kind of talking crap about vegan and their vegans and their health and how there's really no long term vegans. I had somebody mention vegan zombie, and he's a very long term vegan, over 20 years. He's only 43, I believe.
Hmm.
Works out every day, has a very average physique, in my opinion. Looks kind of pale and unhealthy, in my opinion, but he got blood tests done relatively recently after being vegan for 20 years.
Yeah, I
And
saw those blood tests. Yeah.
this particular person was pointing out that they thought he had good blood tests.
Mm-mm.
And yeah, his HDL triglyceride ratio was 2.65, if I recall, which
His
is like
HDL, according to conventional medicine, which is what vegans, they always prop that up. According to conventional medicine, his HDL puts him at a very high risk for a heart attack.
correct.
In the low carb community, it's not good either. It's not look. His HDL is very low, which is not good. In the US, you want to have that above 40, but most countries outside of US, 50 and up is what you want. His was like 39, I believe, 37 even. Very
Mhm.
low. Not good.
I,
Definitely not good. The
I agree.
problem the problem with his diet, I've been meaning to make a video about the guy. I've actually emailed him a couple times. But maybe I'll save that for the video. But the problem with him is for him to lower his LDL, which he shouldn't have attempted to do in the first place, for him to achieve that goal, he stopped eating, consuming a lot of fat.
Mhm.
But there's all kinds of problems that come with that, and this is the problem with the vegan diet. You try to control these macronutrient ratios, or you try to get enough of like this nutrient from this certain plant, but it doesn't just come like a supplement in the bottle. It comes with all these toxins, or it
Mhm.
comes with all this fiber or indigestible protein. So it's, in my opinion, he would have been better off just not fucking with his LDL, because he took a lot of the fat out of his diet, and that means, well, you're going to be low on fat soluble vitamins, dude. And
Right.
fat is an essential macronutrient. If you don't get any fat, you die. You know what I mean? So no, his blood tests, his cholesterol levels, which is what he was trying to fix, in my opinion, and this is backed by people who know a lot more about this than I do, they're not great at all.
Yeah, I agree. And the other thing too is he even mentioned in the video was the doctor was like, "Oh, you just need to start working out more, and that'll come down." He's like, "I'm already working out every day. So
Exactly. So
where do you go from there?"
exactly, he's like, as healthy as can be, except for the diet part. You know what I mean? He
Right.
doesn't smoke, he doesn't drink, he eats whole foods for the most part, yada yada yada, exercises all the time. What do
Again,
you
another
do?
case study.
Where do you go? Yeah,
Like, we know what
exactly.
he's eating. He does kind of promote a junk food diet, which a lot of these long-term ethical vegans do,
But
and
he
they just,
says he doesn't eat it.
well, his channel recipes are like
Yeah, bread.
90% BS, how to make a
Yeah,
vegan pizza or whatever.
that's what sells. But yeah,
Totally.
to your point, that's exactly true. You know, his blood markers might look better than someone on the SAD diet, but that SAD dieter is smoking, drinking, fucking. You know, like they're not exercising. So yeah, his numbers look marginally better, but he's doing everything right
Yeah,
except the
exactly.
diet part, and he's not that far ahead of that fucking SAD slob. So it ain't looking good for homeboy, man. He's not looking good for him.
I
My
agree.
my opinion. My opinion.
That's my opinion too. I stamp that. So,
Yeah. But he seems like a nice guy. He's not one of those crazy vegans, you know, like he's actually one of those guys I could watch. I don't give a shit about the recipes, but he's actually someone that I could listen to and it doesn't get my blood boiling. And John
right.
Venus is another one of those guys, you know what I mean?
There's good people out there, man. Again, like I said, the thing that unites people in veganism sometimes is the fact that they were striving for truth and optimal health. And some people are still on that quest. They just haven't quite gotten there yet, And again, you got to remember John Venus and guys like Brian Turner are only vegan for about 4 years. They just hit their 4 year mark. So that 4 to 5 years, that's the gut check region. That's where people really just fall off and just completely, um, you know, that's where they learn their biggest lessons really. And I didn't consider leaving veganism until after 4 years. Like, I didn't even cross my mind that it was a possibility that I wouldn't not be eating vegan, in a few months' time or whatever.
And you said like there I heard you talk, I think it was with Bobby, how these guys are I know John Venus is because he talks about it. I don't watch Turner, but apparently they're both injured and been dealing with long-term injuries and stuff like that.
Yeah, John Venus just posted. I love being just right one step ahead of these guys because when I made that video where I talk about John Venus's injuries, he made a post the next day, posting an update photo where he's clearly lost a lot of size.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not hating, man. He's a dad now. He's not working out all the time. Whatever, it's all good. He still looks great. Still fucking way bigger and stronger than me. But comparing his own results to himself, he
That's
lost a little bit of
science.
size,
Yeah.
right? He does talk about in that post about having injuries. You can go probably see that on his Instagram right now, where he talks about having like a back injury and some other thing that's been keeping him out of the gym and lifting heavy. And Brian Turner, same exact thing. It's been like a quest on his channel for the last 2 years. And again, Brian Turner, another dude that's massive as shit, probably even bigger than John Venus and more stage ready than John Venus has ever been. But again,
And he's been dealing with the same injury for 2 years now.
yeah, not the same injury as John Venus, but another injury that
Long lasting injury.
a long lasting injury. Yeah, almost 2 years, and he's been
Jeez.
actually seeing a physical therapist for over a year. And he's working with her like on a weekly basis. Like who who has money and time for that? It's his livelihood. Obviously, he has to do it, and he's got this road to recovery series going on his channel. But how about you just don't need the road to recovery? You just go eat animal products and then you heal up in about 2 to 3 weeks, and the whole thing is going to seem kind of silly, Because I actually had a pec tear in my chest.
Mm-hmm.
This shit happens all the time. You work out enough, you're going to get a little bit of bumps and bruises going on, but it heals up quick,
You
It's
heal a
normal.
lot better when you eat a lot more meat. I've noticed that too. And like I don't bruise as much all of a sudden because working on the farm, like I cut myself all day every day. I'm always like banged up or something, but I've noticed that I heal a lot better. And I was actually dealing with severe back issues and injuries. It got to a point where I was like pulling out stubborn weeds and tearing like gluteus maximus all the way from like my lower back to my ass almost.
Mm.
Like I don't know exactly what, but I was bedridden for like 2-3 days. I couldn't walk. This was like a recurring injury, and it left me crazy inflamed and all that other shit. And then I started eating nothing but meat, and it cleared up. And then over Christmas I carved up. I went to have some fun. I ate some sugary foods, ice cream, had a beer. And the next day, I'm pulling a fucking weed out of the ground, and I pulled the same muscle again. And, it's been like 3 months now, and it's almost all good. But it's just like night and day, basically. When I was eating meat, I was eating eggs, dairy, I was eating all that stuff. I
Just when
just
you included
wasn't
carbs
eating
back in.
enough. Yeah, and I wasn't eating enough. I wasn't getting enough of the essential amino acids necessary to deal with, an injury. Like, vegans will say, well, this has a complete amino acid profile, and if you combine rice and beans,
Bullshit.
whatever.
The leucine is so low no matter what you do.
Right, but that's for like maintaining somebody. Like, who are these statistics done on? Someone in their 20s, or just like a normal person? What about someone who's injured and has an extra need for more of all that good stuff? Can they get it from the plant-based diet? Well, apparently Brian Turner can't, and that guy's on all kinds of powders, I'm sure. I don't know, but
He is 100%. He
sells
is.
them.
He
Yeah,
shows him in his what I eat in a day. He eats like a bodybuilder.
yeah,
That's how
exactly.
he's so massive, and he is maintaining his size. But again, and this is a criticism that I made in one of my videos, is that they're not able to be lean and strong at the same time anymore. So
And all
they're
those guys take creatine, man. And to me,
true,
that just tells you everything you need to know, man. Because you can't get that from plants. Where's
right?
creatine from? You're honestly telling me that creatine monohydrate synthesized in some fucking ass lab in China. You're telling me that that's better than like a grass-fed steak? Really? Really? Nah, I'm
I
not
can't even
buying it.
handle creatine. I never could. Even as a meat eater, I would eat
What
creatine.
happened?
It gave me a nauseous feeling every single time. Like, I could not handle it. Most
Toxic.
I ever took it was for like a month. Yeah, totally toxic. I felt like shit on that. It fucking worked though. It made me my face kind of swell up with water, but my muscles were bigger and they were ready to work. And then if I combine that along with this shit I used to take back in the day, a long time ago, called Carbomax. It was a powderized, tasteless carbohydrate, like a starch mixture, and you would mix it with like juice, basically. So I'd mix juice, creatine, and Carbomax together, and I had the most insane workouts. Like, the pump was just so huge, and halfway through the workout,
Synthetic.
super synthetic. Yeah, where you would normally be starting to fade in your workout, you got stronger. Like, 30 minutes in, you're just like, you get this second win, and you're ready to go even harder.
Jeez.
And that was probably the most strong that I ever felt in the gym, was doing that type of stuff. But that's not healthy. Like, drinking straight starch carbohydrate. Come on.
I could see somebody getting injured with, feeling like Superman, but your ligaments and muscles and bones, there's only so much they can handle, you know what I mean? It seems, I don't know what was in the stuff you were taking, but probably some stimulants also.
I never did pre-workouts, actually,
Okay.
but I was taking meal replacements back in the day. And this is another story I can tell. Again, another case study is, back when I was 18, I was basically super skinny, 123 pounds, tiny, and
Wait, 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 wait. You're 5'10", 123?
yeah, straight skeleton, dude. Like, I post pictures of that actually a long time ago, but yeah, so straight skeleton, right? Never worked out a day in my life, and I started working out. So 3 months, I gained 30 pounds. And it was not fat. Like, I have pictures of it. My body completely transformed. But what did I do this with? Obviously, a shitload of meat. I was drinking protein powders, meal replacements, not even protein powder. I was drinking like 600 calorie meal replacements in between my meals. And then I also found the Carbomax like a couple years later to help with additional gains. And yeah, things, you can gain power and size on meat very quickly, but vegans don't really have anything to base this on. They don't understand like the real power that comes from eating the mass gaining foods, how fucking strong and huge you can get. I'm not saying it's healthy. I'm just saying there's a different level.
Yeah, I don't even work out, but I do work. And I noticed that when I just started eating straight meats, the same, bags of corn that I would lift, all of a sudden, I felt like they were cheating us at the store. Like, they were skimping on those bags or
Yeah.
something.
Just getting
Because,
stronger for no reason. Like,
yeah, just no reason, just by being and doing the things that I do, all the physical tasks were easier because I
well,
was less inflamed and just stronger.
yeah, I want to comment on that too. When you are vegan, everything is hard. Like every lift is hard. From the first rep, it doesn't feel that comfortable. Like your body isn't really willing to work. That's what I would like to describe it as. And somebody who's a little bit more experienced with gym workouts and stuff like that, it feels like you're constantly in a caloric deficit. Whereas like when you're in a deficit, typically speaking, especially when you're low on protein, you just have this feeling where like your body is almost like giving you the signals saying, hey, I don't want to break down right now because I can't rebuild it back. It's
Yeah.
giving you these signals. So you cannot push that hard, that deeply into the workout.
Maybe the muscle is getting most of what it needs, but the joints are saying, we can't handle this. This is too much weight for us right now, because it seems to me like that's what a lot of vegans have problems with is their joints and connective tissue, because, where do you get those amino acids? I mean, yeah, I know you could get some on the vegan diet, but it's nothing like actually eating actual connective tissue or bone broth, collagen, what have you. So,
yeah. So I have a question for you. Like, do you do liver and organ products and stuff?
I
Organ
do.
meats?
I eat organ meats, high meat mostly, fermented.
Hmm.
I don't really. I'll eat raw. I don't cook organs anymore. I used to. I would just cook them a little bit, pan sear them, and then I got used to the raw taste, and it just tastes better now. Cooked liver tastes nasty to me now.
Okay. Do
I
you
it,
freeze it ever or like because I have some and I de-thawed it and it doesn't taste good.
I don't, but
Hmm.
sometimes I have no choice but to buy it frozen, and
Mm-hmm.
then it is what it is. But it definitely loses because when you go to ferment it, the bacteria that's already there breaks it down and you get a certain flavor, whatever certain process occurs. But when it's frozen, it takes longer to break it down and the flavor is different. It's still good, but you could definitely tell that freezing it kills some of the beneficial bacteria. And I'm pretty sure it probably destroys some of the vitamin content. So, if
Interesting.
that's all you can get, it is what it is. But I prefer not to.
Am I missing out on something that I don't know about? Because honestly, I feel damn good. My performance is good. Everything, all the markers are very good. Like I'm not really searching for an improvement at this point.
Do
You know
you
what I'm
eat
saying?
fish?
Hell yeah, I eat salmon. I eat tuna. I've never had an issue with like mercury or any of this stuff.
Yeah,
So
if you eat wild caught fish, you might not have to eat
yeah.
organs, especially if you get a salmon roe or any kind of fish roe.
Yeah, yeah.
I would recommend that. That's what I eat. It's because
Do you
pound
get it
for
without
pound.
salt? Because I've gotten it from the grocery store and it's like so salty I can't even handle it.
Oh, no, I just get it raw straight out of the fish. Everything here is like so third world.
Yeah,
But yeah, I get it just raw basically. And I don't even know what the fish is. It's raw and it's delicious and it makes me feel good. I would, if you want to cross all your T's, and dot your I's, you may want to eat a little bit of liver twice a month, maybe, like a decent
can
amount of
bone
liver.
broth also supplement for liver, or is it? Do you think that the
No,
liver has
liver
the stuff?
has liver has vitamins that bone broth, that's mostly minerals. I mean, by the time you cook a lot of the vitamins out, you denature a lot of the good stuff. Bone broth it makes sense because we cannot, chew bones, obviously, or it's very hard to get at what's in the bones. So it's a good way of extracting that which is in the bones, minerals and a lot of the amino acids for sure. I'm not against that. I don't like bone broth personally. So, but organs, especially fresh, especially raw, if you could bring yourself to do it, they're going to have especially something like vitamin A. If you're worried about vitamin C, which you probably are not if you're eating some plants,
Some
you
plants.
probably,
That's why I do make sure to include
yeah.
some plants.
But, vitamin A is very important, vital, and liver has a ton of that vitamin. So,
Okay.
that's the main reason why I would recommend eating that. And there's also, as we found out with all that beef between, well, it's all one-sided, Frankie and Saladino. Liver also has omega 3s or DHA, is it? Yeah, DHA. So, but you're eating fish, so
Yeah.
you're if you're eating fish and beef and eggs and dairy, you're basically covered. But
Yeah.
if you're looking for optimal performance and just to be sure, why not? I'm not saying you have to eat organs. A lot of people don't like to, and they feel great just as you do. But what do you got to lose? You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
high meat, I guess that's like the next stage, and a lot of people don't feel like go in there. They don't feel the need for it, but I recommend it.
Hmm.
High meat is it's just on another level. I mean, it it just like it does something. I don't understand the chemistry, but it's like a dopamine rush.
Hmm.
It really it you don't get high like as if you were taking drugs, but what's her name? I always forget her name. Natasha Campbell, the creator of the Gap diet. Are you
Yeah.
familiar with her? Yeah, she was saying that
Natasha Campbell or Natasha McBride?
both. She's Campbell
Oh,
McBride. I don't know.
okay. Same lady.
Yeah, same lady. Hyphenated. She the point she made was that there's certain meats or all meat animal products basically activate I don't understand the biochemistry to be honest with you, but it has something to do with like GABA receptors and um, releasing dopamine, blah blah blah. They basically release good feeling chemicals in our bodies, which is why when we're deprived of these things as kids especially, we look to marijuana, cocaine, and other drugs, alcohol even,
Hmm.
to fulfill that need, which is why the name high meat makes perfect sense, because it really does give you a certain kind of euphoria, and it just makes you feel good, and it gives you like instant energy. And the what do I want to say, bacterial profile, if you're into probiotics and stuff like that, well, that can't hurt either, you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, but it's a little weird. It stinks until you get used to it. It's like a you know specialty food, I guess. It's like really good blue cheese or something. Some people love it, some people
Right.
hate it. It's
And I
essentially
do
the same
like
thing.
that. I do like blue cheese actually, and when I go out to restaurants and stuff like that, especially some of these nicer places, it's funny, man. Like that's another thing that the vegans brush off is say like, okay, you wouldn't eat that raw. You have to season your meat. You have to do this and that. They just completely ignoring the fact that sushi is probably the most popular, widely loved dish around the world,
Hmm.
which everybody loves raw fish, like pretty much everybody.
Yeah.
And then you've got steak tartare, which is served at the best restaurants. So it's most expensive meat on the damn menu.
Sweden has pickled and fermented herring, which is essentially high meat, high seafood. Over here, people will hang beef for like 2 3 weeks out in the sun, and it gets all funky and stinky. Years
Wow.
ago, one of these natives gave me some, and I wasn't hip to any of this stuff, and I just thought it was nasty. It had like little grubs in it too. It was
Like
gross.
maggots and stuff?
Maggots.
Wow,
Um,
wow.
but he would just pick the maggots out and eat it. And I tried a little bit, and it just kind of tasted like, I don't want to say shit because I've never had shit, but it kind of like had that funk to it, and it was
Yeah,
gross. And I thought it would just like get me sick or something. But I ate some and I was fine. But this is something they do here. There's
yeah.
high meat all over the world. There's some kind of version of fermented, broken down animal product. Even, I mean, yogurt, it's the same thing. Sour milk,
Yeah, true.
cheese,
Interesting.
it's all the same stuff. It's just that we've lost this knowledge, and it's really some of these indigenous cultures that still keep this tradition going. But I think it must have happened prior to refrigeration and being able to preserve the meat the way we are able to do these days. Surely people ate spoiled, quote unquote, spoiled meat. You know what I mean? Why not?
Yeah, and they probably didn't think anything of it really back in the day.
Yeah.
I like a lot of these foods now. Like especially, I'm getting even more of a taste for blue cheese. I'm getting more of a taste for yogurts and kefir and stuff like that. I can my palate is widening as far as that like umami like uh fermenty flavor. I enjoy it. So I
Hmm.
could see myself at some point really digging into that high meat. And I noticed back a long time ago too that when I was eating steaks, I was starting to almost like want to take a bite of the raw meat back years ago before I was vegan, before any of that.
Do you
You know,
eat
you
raw now or rare
no,
or?
I can eat the spectrum really. I
Hmm.
don't like it too cooked. You know, medium is probably like as far as I go. I do like it. I cook it in a varying ways on my grill over here. So with ground beef, I do notice I like to cook it more. I think it's just the quality of the meat or the type of meat. I
Hmm.
do appreciate more of a cooked ground beef. But when it comes to steak, I can definitely get down with like a blue, a
Yeah.
typically blue steak. nice sear on the outside and just like pretty much red on the inside.
Oh, another thing, a lot of deli meats or like traditionally prepared sausages, especially from Europe,
Hmm.
that's all aged meat. It's essentially fermented, you know. It's preserved a little bit, I think, so it doesn't rot completely, but like dry aged, that's also spoiled meat, essentially rotten meat, you know. So it's not as weird as it seems, but fermented liver, if you're ever gonna try it, that's the one I would suggest, is to get like some veal liver and ferment it for a very long time in the fridge, because then eventually like the funk kind of goes away and the flavor becomes more mild and a lot richer and complex. And to me, it's a delicacy now. Like I can't eat too much of it because it's so rich, but when I do eat a little bit of it, and I had some earlier today, it's I could honestly say it's delicious. It wasn't at first, but you know,
Hmm.
taste buds change. And it definitely, you notice like immediately, you just feel better. It's amazing.
I can imagine that that's what would happen. And I tried to eat this liver that I bought frozen not too long ago, and I let it thaw and everything, and I tried to bite raw because I wanted to see what was up, but I just couldn't imagine like taking more than just one bite of it. There's just no way that the texture and the flavor was just not something that I was that was palatable to me in
Yeah,
any
it's
way.
it's not like anything we ever eat. So why, you know, it's so foreign and weird. And I mean, come on, dude, you were just vegan a few months ago. It's
Yeah,
like, come
true.
on, you know, like baby steps, basically baby steps.
Agree.
Yeah.
What's going on in the chat?
How
This guy's
long
getting
do
out of
you
control.
ferment? Yeah. I have a few videos for Stefan Jones. I have a few videos about high meat, but for me, 2 to 3 months is optimal in the fridge. Some people do it out of the fridge. It's not as, it's a lot quicker actually, but I haven't tried it yet, so I can't comment on that. I like to do it for like 3 months optimally in the fridge, airing it out every 3 days or so. Fill the jar a third of the way full. Make sure it gets air at least twice a week. And after 3 months, it's like fine cheese.
Do you do raw eggs?
My eggs, I cook the whites, and the yolks I eat warm essentially, but raw. Sometimes I
Okay.
undercook the whites. I'll eat raw eggs also, but I prefer to cook them sunny side up with just. I guess there's some anti-avitine, I think it's called, anti-nutrient in the white. I'm not too worried about it, but
Yeah.
I like the flavor. So the way I eat is essentially 50-50. I was no more raw than cooked. So everything that I eat is at least completely raw or partially raw, basically. Like steaks or burgers, I'll like cook them on each side for like 30 seconds to a minute, depending on
Wow.
how. Yeah. So my burgers are essentially raw, and it digests better. Less goes a lot further. You know, they keep me full longer. Raw meat, I'm not recommending it to anybody. I'm not saying that eating cooked meat, there's anything wrong with that at all. But with what I've experienced in my experimentation, for me, raw meat is the shit. But I love the flavor of cooked meat too. So I do both.
I do notice that when I cook a steak too much, or I get it does affect the digestibility. I don't know if raw is more optimal than like blue for
Mhm.
me, but I do notice that yeah, if it gets past a certain point, it's kind of like tough. If it's tough for the knife to cut, then
Yeah.
it's getting to a point where it might not be optimal for digestion.
A lot of meat, when you cook it, becomes tough. But when you eat it raw, it's surprisingly tender and soft, actually.
Someone asked if I use raw milk as a carb refeed or if I just drink it when I want it. I drink it essentially for both. I do 2 meals a day and I drink it for both meals. I like milk a lot. And I noticed that it's got some really good benefits just for like the muscle building and getting in a little bit of extra calories and protein per day. It's basically like free calories for me because I find it harder to put on weight if I'm eating straight up meat and water. Like it's almost impossible for me to gain weight just doing that. I just can't eat enough of the meat, especially eating only 2 meals a day.
Do
And
you get any like additional fat? Just like lard or butter or.
I want to start doing that. I
Mhm.
haven't been buying stuff at butchers, like the
Suet.
connoisseur way. Yeah, I want to get suet because I enjoy the fat. I mean, obviously I really like it, but I buy T-bones and ribeyes consistently at the store. They're very available to me here. And
Fatty.
so they're very fatty. So I'm not worried about I'm not worried about that. I'm getting
Yeah,
quite a bit of fat, and I want the higher protein content also. So
totally.
I'm kind of like prioritizing it in the way that is going to fit my goals. But I do notice that when I eat higher protein, like the more the merrier, basically for strength gains. When I was doing one meal a day, I was in kind of like an aggressive cut in terms of calories. So like maybe 1,300, 1,400 calories a day. But I wasn't getting enough protein. I was only consuming maybe like 120 grams of protein a day.
Hmm.
And that's under eating for me in terms of calories and protein. And I noticed that my strength started actually slipping down. My workouts weren't as good. But as soon as I got the protein back, up to over 150 grams, which is what I need right now, I was noticeably stronger and then like gaining performance once again, even though I was still losing body fat. So I was still in a cut and I was able to maintain my performance. And right there is like the holy grail of fat loss because you're still maintaining your shape, you know?
Would you say you're about 50-50 calorically when it comes to fat and protein?
Yeah, that would be. I could probably chronometer that real quickly, but I think it's something like that because it's like a pound of ribeye is about 1,000 calories and about 100 grams of protein. So what would that be? 400 uh, 400 calories of protein. So yeah, 600 calories of fat. So roughly 40-50% is going to be protein. Roughly 50% is going to be fat, and then a very trace amount of carbohydrate that I'm consuming. I think you're muted, bud.
Oh, sorry. There's a bit of a schism in low carb carnivore community insofar as how much protein to fat people should consume, and I tend to lean to less fat. I still eat a lot of fat, but I
Yeah,
really feel better with good amount of protein, and I
same.
think that might have to do with the fact that even though I don't work out, like I'm active, you know what I mean. I need my strength. I need that energy, and I think protein provides that. A lot of people, when I try to eat the types of the amount of fat that some people suggest, it wasn't a fun experience. Let me just put it that way,
Yeah, I
without
don't have.
getting into details.
I'm sure there was some wetness on the
Yeah,
backside. I don't have the appetite. I mean, I love the taste of fat. Don't get me wrong, but it's like in the relation to the muscle meat. Like I enjoy that fat, and then I enjoy that muscle meat bite. You know, but I'm not looking to just literally eat a chunk of fat on the side. You know, that's seems a little overboard for me. And again, at the end of the day, you only have so much stomach volume or ability to eat this food. And if you need more protein for recovery purposes, then if you eat too much fat, you're obviously not going to have that room for the protein. So that's why I think ketogenic people in general find it hard to gain muscle on a ketogenic diet. Whereas on a carnivore diet, you're talking high protein and you just don't have the same issues.
yeah. Jasmine asks about protein recommendations for women. Look, I wouldn't even recommend anything for any man out there. Like, you really have to experiment for yourself. But I'll tell you this much: my wife, when she started eating more protein because of me, animal protein, obviously, a lot of her aches, she used to have like these problems with her shoulders. She used to twist her ankle all the time. All of that went
Mm,
away. So whatever like your doctor tells you, I would say, and this is not a recommendation, by the way, but it is. Whatever your doctor says you should eat as far as protein, double that.
yeah, I think they're
That's what I
just
would
talking
say.
about the minimum, like the third world minimum, you know,
Yeah,
so
no,
that you don't
forget
like
it.
get cholera and fucking die. Like,
Yeah.
no, we're talking about optimization. We're talking about performance here. I wanted to ask you something regarding. It's killing me. It wasn't due to fat. Anyways, I'm gonna have to
I'm sure
revisit
it'll
that one.
come to you. But yeah, basically, whatever the mainstream says, it's not enough. It's just not enough. Whether you're a man, woman, whatever. Protein is fuck, who is that guy? There's someone on YouTube, a doctor. I can't remember his name right now. I'm sorry, but he's really big into protein, and he makes a very strong case for consuming a lot of protein. But if you follow Sean Baker, I'm sure they had him on one of their HPO podcasts. So I'm sorry, I
Oh,
can't remember his name right now. Go ahead.
I was gonna ask you about fat adaptation, because
Hmm.
we were talking about satiation, fat levels, etc. I've kind of like been formulating this theory recently, regarding once you become extremely fat adapted. Like I personally believe, and people may disagree with this, but I personally believe that like that aesthetic physique that we see on like tribal, African tribal dudes that are like, you know, out there in the wilderness with the freaking six packs and they look buff as shit and healthy as hell. Like those guys, I think there's a reason why girls like lean physiques on guys, lean six pack, hard body physiques. And I think there's a reason why guys typically like that on women as well. Not to an extreme level, but a very fit looking athletic physique. I think there's a universal attraction to that look for a reason. And it might be genetic or biological attraction or whatever. But I think when we're eating our species specific diet, such as let's say carnivore, let's assume that carnivore is that species specific diet. Um, I feel like our body naturally goes to its most attractive aesthetic state.
Hmm.
So we naturally, and especially in regards to our weather system. So like I'm in a warm weather climate. You're probably in a decently warm weather climate. It's not snowing there year round. So what I think is when we're consuming high protein with the meats, we're consuming a reasonable amount of fat, and then we become fat adapted. I feel like our body gets to a point where it almost loses its appetite because you have excess fat on you to burn. And what I notice when I go 5, 6 days deep into carnivore, with zero carb, I notice that I'm almost losing my appetite for the second meal of the day. So
Yeah.
like I get too satiated off that first meal, and I almost don't even want to eat that second meal because my body's like, what do I need it for? I have energy. You're just sitting in the fucking chair. I have enough protein to like get me by, you know?
Yeah. When I used to be high carb, for example, and first of all, I ate many more meals and by volume a lot more food. But when I was eating my food after not having, after getting legitimately hungry, I would just like find myself swallowing the shit without really chewing it, without really enjoying it. Sometimes you just get so hungry, you like pack it in, and it never really satiates. With carnivore now, it's like I take my time. It takes me an hour to eat my one meal a day, and it just fills me up. And I eat the next day because I know I'm going to need the energy. I'm not necessarily hungry. I'm not fiending. I'm not like, I got to eat. I'm not thinking about food at all. I just eat because I know that if I don't, I'm going to be weak basically.
Right.
But I forgot what it means to be hungry essentially, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like I'm going on 3 p.m. right now and I haven't eaten today. And I'm sure if I stand up too quickly right now, I'll probably be a little bit lightheaded. If I would test that out, I probably could do that. But uh, I'm yeah, basically if I eat now, I won't be hungry until like very late. And it's hard for me to even sometimes do that or to get in that second meal. But I know that I need that protein in order to keep growing those muscles. And of course, like a vegan will come in and say, that's is it healthy to even do that in the first place? And there's this like whole argument around that, which I find also funny.
Yeah, I mean, there's always going to be arguments for and a pro and con, I mean to say. But I'm just big on intuitive eating. If I eat something and it makes me feel good, can it really be bad for me? And I don't mean like
Yeah.
it makes me feel good right now. I'm talking about all day, every day. You know what I mean? Because I used to eat plants and I would feel good after I ate the plants, but then like half an hour later, I'm all like uncomfortable, bloating, farting. I ate too much, but I'm still hungry, and
Yep.
it's just if you really trust yourself and you pay attention to your body. I'm not saying carnivore would work for everybody, but the sort of signals that eating this way has been sending me, I just can't fathom how it could be wrong for me. You know what I mean? I'm sure
Same.
you
I'm in the
do.
same boat. I totally agree. It's just it's obvious doing it that
Yeah,
this is the way, you know what I mean? Like you don't need to have a study or a doctor tell you that like sex feels good.
exactly,
It's like it
exactly.
feels good. It would be if somebody came along, some guru came along was like that pleasure you feel during sex that actually doesn't feel good. You're not supposed to enjoy that. It's
It's
supposed
all
to be
in
a
your head.
painful experience. Yeah, it's all in your head. I'm like, whoa, that's not adding up. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And that's kind of
no,
like people coming along with veganism. They're like, you should be adjusting to all that plant fiber. You
yeah.
shouldn't be eating all that meat. It's rotting in your gut. And you're like, doesn't feel like it's rotting. It feels Feels
No,
perfect.
it's fiber that rots. Meat gets basically decomposed in the stomach and then absorbed in the small intestine. It doesn't even really make it to the colon very much. Not much of it, I don't think.
I
Just the
agree.
waste, So if anything rots, and it's not actually, it's fermenting, not the same. But if you have SIBO or not SIBO, or if you have some kind of gut dysbiosis, then it rots. And if anything's gonna rot, it's the fucking carbs, man. Because if you take all carbs out, farting just doesn't happen. This is the thing that like had me so confused, because I would eat a salad with some egg in it, and then I would fart and it would smell like eggs, and I was
Yeah,
always blaming the eggs. No.
always. Yes.
Take the lettuce out and you won't be farting anymore. You know what I mean? It's not the eggs that are making you fart. It's the beans, it's the lettuce, it's the fiber, it's the
Yeah.
carbs. If I drink raw milk, yeah, there's going to be some flatulence, not a lot, but because there are carbs in it, it
Right.
does happen. So
Yes.
it's the carbs. It's not the proteins. It's not the fats. It's the fucking carbs.
Yep.
And
I call.
I just want to say, like, I'm not saying people shouldn't eat any plants. Like, I eat them, like, to each his own. All I'm saying is eat some fucking meat. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, definitely. I noticed I coined the phrase "hot carby farts" back in the day because that's what they fucking smell like, man. They're just like they're so hot. It's like jet fuel coming out of
Dude,
you.
dude, what's this whole like notion that vegan farts don't smell? I mean,
It's
come
a
on.
joke. It's a joke. It's a
It's a,
joke. It's so
it has
stupid.
to be. It has to be. I was never vegan, so I can't speak on it, but it just doesn't make any sense that they wouldn't.
Okay, well, I think I'm getting kind of hungry right now talking about all this food. I need to get it going.
Right on. Well, it's been 2 hours and very nice talking to you. I enjoyed myself
Absolutely.
very much. We should do this sometimes whenever you feel like it, and whenever we could, make it happen. We should. I think
Absolutely.
the I think the people had fun,
Yep,
and
yep.
yeah. Is there anything else you want to add before we jet on out of here?
Uh, no. Do you do consultations, by the way? Like, do you help people on a back end? Nothing like that.
No, I don't. I don't get into all that. I just share my own experience. I leave all the other. I let other people figure their own shit out. You know what I mean? If they want to look at what I'm doing and model that, what they're doing, take tips from me, that's great. But I just don't want to be responsible.
Cool.
You
Well,
know what I mean?
yeah, definitely. I'm going to be releasing some content regarding that this weekend. I believe that I'm going to start offering consultations on a more formal basis with people. More like a 30-minute, 60-minute consultation. So if people are struggling out there, they're like coming from the vegan angle and they want to talk to me more specifically about that, because that's kind of where I think I'm going to specialize, is people leaving veganism and coming into the meat, because there's so many people that are dealing with this particular niche issue. And if that is any of you guys, feel free to hit me up. Yeah. So glad that
Right
you guys are
on.
enjoying the videos too.
Yeah. Thanks for coming through. I'm glad we could make this happen despite the dramatic time difference between the two of us.
All good, man. I'm going to eat. I'm going to work out. I'm going to just, yeah, enjoy the rest of the day. Hope you
All
do
right,
too.
man. Take it
Take it
easy.
easy. Have fun. See you guys. Have a good time.
Peace.